All right, here is some help for Unit 1, Lesson 3. First off, questions 1 through 8, they are just vocabulary. These are the vocabulary and words and definitions at the top of the lesson, so just reference that to answer questions 1 through 8. 9, 10, and 11 are very similar. They're showing you a ruler with some points, and they're asking for measurements of line segments. So I'm going to show you an example. This is really just using a ruler. So if I want to know what the length is for line segment BH, so that means from B all the way to H, then you can use this ruler postulate. So what the ruler postulate says is that you take the absolute value of the difference between the 2 points. So here point B is 1, you see on the ruler, point H is 4. So the reason you're taking the absolute value is 1 minus 4 is -3. Absolute value is just making that number inside the absolute value brackets positive. And you're doing it for the ruler postulate because the measure of a length of something can't be negative. So this would just be +3. And you can also just see, you know, from 1 to 2, from 2 to 3, from 3 to 4, this is 3 inches long. That's simply the ruler postulate. And then for this one here, it says Carlos drove 2 friends home after their school's football game. Jean's house is 10 miles from the school, so they're saying the school is F. And from F all the way to Jean's house here, that is 10, okay? And then they're saying from the school to Hector's house, so from F all the way down to H, that is 14, okay? So they want to know what is the distance from Jean's house to Hector's house. So if you notice here, if you just kind of focus in on the lines, we have a blue line and we have a red line. And the length of the blue line plus the length of the red line is the same as the length of the green line. So the red, or the blue plus the red equals the length of the green. So if we put that into an equation, we know the blue is 10. We don't know what the red is, so we're just going to call that X. So blue plus red equals the length of the green, and that's 14. So you just solve this equation, and that will tell you the length of the red piece. All right, this is going to help you with questions 13 through 16. This is what the picture looks like, or it's similar to this, except it also gives you another piece of information. It says in small print, one segment, in this case I'm doing AD, is congruent to another line segment, EB. So it's telling you that. So when you go to the first question, this is question 13, it says name 2 line segments that have the same length. Well, if they're telling us that these 2 line segments are congruent, that means that they are the same length. So that's all you do for the first question. So what a midpoint is the middle of a line segment. So if you have a line segment and there's a midpoint, it's cut in the middle, then that divides it into 2 equal pieces. So if this AD and this DB are the same length, then that means that this point right here must be the midpoint. It's the middle. So it would be point D. And then it says which line segment, not which point, but which line segment is a bisector. Bi means two, like bicycle has two wheels. A bisector is a line that divides another line in half. So again, this point D is the middle of this green and blue line. So the line that cuts it in half is right here. From C down to E. So that would be our line segment, that is our bisector. And the last thing they're telling us is if line AD is 5, they want to know what is the distance from A to B. So again, focus over here. It says that AD is congruent to DB. So if the distance from A to D is 5, then the distance from D to B is also 5. That means that the distance from A all the way down to B is 5 plus 5, or 10. Okay, a couple more. For 17. Okay, so when they give you something like this without a picture, you need to kind of visualize what's happening and draw yourself a picture, and hopefully then it would be more clear. So I'm going to do an example in red here. It says calculate the line or the length of line segment XY. So with midpoint M. So I'm going to draw an XY. Call this X, call this Y, and it says there's a midpoint, so right there in the middle about is M. And it's telling us that XM is 7. So from X to M, that is 7. So again, like the last one, if you have a midpoint, that is dividing that line segment in half. So if XM is 7, then MY must also be 7 because the middle is that purple dot M. So now we're able to look at it and say, well, what's the distance from X all the way to Y? Well, it's 7 plus 7, which is 14. So draw yourself a picture. This one is similar, but we have to solve an equation. So I'll do the one in red that's similar to the question that you're going to be asked. It says calculate the line segment XY. So again, I'm just going to draw that from X to Y. And they're telling us that there's a midpoint, a middle point, M. Now they're telling us that XM, from X to M, sorry I didn't put a line, is a 5X plus 1. And from M to Y, that's 3X plus 5. And then again, this is the middle. So the middle divides that line segment into 2 equal pieces. So the blue line is the same as the green line. So you just set up that equation. The blue line, which is 5x plus 1, is equal to the green line. Okay. Now, we solve this to find out what x is. So I'm going to move all my variables to one side. So I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. Then I'm going to solve this by moving the 1 over and then dividing by 2. Now, it's not asking me what does x equal. It's asking me what is the distance from x all the way over to y. So I need to then substitute. So for xm, that is 5 times 2 plus 1. I just substituted 2 in for x. Well, 5 times 2 is 10, plus 1 is 11. So that's the distance from x to m. And then I'll do the same for the green line segment from m to y. So 3 times 2 plus 5, well, 3 times 2 is 6, plus 5 is also 11, which makes sense, remember, because m is our middle. This piece and this piece should be equal. So if each of those are 11, if this equals 11 and this equals 11, then the total distance from x down to m is 22.